There has been a tragic and brutal attack in Norway where a man killed 5 people using a bow and arrow. Now, the right wing in America, though, has decided to use this tragic case to push out their thoughts on gun regulations. Of course, here in the United States, we have incredibly lax gun regulations, whereas Norway has stricter gun regulations. And so Lauren Boebert wanted to make a point about how maybe Norway should take a page out of our book. Obviously, we disagree, but first, before I get to those details, let me give you some more context, more detail in regard to the tragic events in Norway. A 37-year-old man was charged on Thursday in connection with a bow and arrow rampage in a small town in Norway that killed 5 people and wounded 3 others in what authorities said was an apparent act of terrorism. Now, there haven't been too many details in regard to these accusations of him being radicalized, but here's what we know so far. The police chief said that the last time concerns about the suspect's radicalization had been brought to the police's attention was last year, but he did not say who had contacted them with those concerns or even specified their nature. He said only that the police had followed up on multiple reports. And by the way, this comes 10 years after a devastating right-wing terrorist attack in Norway, and that was the Breivik attack. It was the worst mass killing in Norway since 2011. I want you to remember that date as we continue talking about this story. 2011, when a far-right extremist killed 77 people, most of them teenagers at a camp. And so I'm gonna get to Lauren Boebert's statement in just a second, but Cenk, did you want to jump in before I do so?
Yeah, just real quick. So killing 5 people with a bow and arrow is extraordinary, but that's my point. It is extraordinary, it is not normal. So what is normal is killing 77 people with guns, which is what Breivik did. What is normal is, unfortunately, is the massacres we have in America pretty much every day. So 5 people were killed, 4 or more people killed is considered a mass shooting in America, and most years we average 1 a day, okay? So when it happens with a bow and arrow, it becomes international news. When it is done with a gun in America, it's not even reported anymore. Oh, another massacre, boring. And we don't even report it anymore because it is so commonplace it would swallow the show whole. And in Vegas, the shooter killed 60 and wounded 411. You cannot do that with bows and arrows or ropes or butter knives. So do guns kill people more efficiently? Hell yes, that's indisputable. And again, only disingenuous people would disagree.
So let's compare Norway and the United States. First off, in the wake of the tragedy, some analysts in the US cited the rampage as proof that strict gun laws, which in Norway include requiring applicants to be at least 18 years old, specify a valid reason for gun ownership, and obtain a government license, are ineffective. One of those lunatics is Lauren Boebert, who said, a man in Norway just killed a bunch of people with a bow and arrow. Norway has some of the strictest gun laws around, yet mass killings still occur. Remember, the last time there was a mass killing was in 2011. Liberals need to understand it is not the gun, it is the criminal who commits the act. All right, let's take a look at the difference between places like Norway and the United States. So murder, by the way, in Norway is incredibly rare. So in a country with a population of just over 5 million, there were 31 murders last year, most involving people who knew each other. Okay, so let's compare the murder rates in the United States, where it's basically 10 times as much. So this is murder rate per capita per 100,000 people. In the United States, it's 4.96. In Norway, it's 0.5. Interesting. Okay, so the fear mongering, they need lax gun laws so everyone can be armed to defend themselves. Now, we are a violent country in the United States, which is, I think, enabled by the fact that we're swimming in a sea of guns. Norway's very different. Let me give you more. Like Americans, many Norwegians do own guns, but according to a Norwegian journalist, the culture of gun ownership is very different in the 2 countries. So in Norway, for example, it's uncommon to see guns outside organized settings like gun clubs or during hunting season. Okay, so, and I get it, the culture definitely is different. There's this obsession with guns in the United States, whereas in Norway it seems to be more about the utility, right? Using it for hunting, using it as part of this club that you're in. Also, the same journalist says, yes, there's a high percentage of gun ownership in Norway, but those guns are used mainly 1 week in the year during the hunting of elk season. The rest of the year, it's locked down and stored. And that's the other thing. I mean, we have these debates and these discussions about what constitutes common sense gun legislation, but there really isn't much emphasis on gun safety, which is why you see story after story, devastating story after story of a young child finding a gun and accidentally shooting him or herself. And it's devastating. By contrast, millions of Americans have open or concealed carry firearms. So handguns are by far the most common murder weapon in the United States, accounting for 8,029 homicides in 2020 alone. This is followed by firearms of an unstated type with 4,863 cases in that same year. So again, there are some pretty significant differences here. And then finally, one last graphic I'll go to. Let's take a look at this chart. So this is the number of murder victims in the United States in 2020 by weapon used. And at the very top, you see handguns, 8,029. Then there's firearms, the type not stated, 4,863. So the top two are firearms of some sort.
Of course, look guys, look, it's simple logic. No one can dispute this. Can you kill someone with a rope? Yes. Can you kill someone with a nuke? Yes. If you leave it at that, you really missed the story. Can you kill people easier with a nuke? Can you kill more people with a nuke than a rope? Obviously. Can you kill more people with a gun and easier with a gun than you can with a bow and arrow? Generally speaking, yes, you can kill a lot more people with an AK-47, AR-15. What other examples do I have to give you? Howitzers, RPGs, yes, those things kill people more efficiently. That's why they're used in battlefields. And by the way, the #1 way that people die from guns is suicide. And
that's not even included in those numbers, by the way.
Yeah, because that's about homicides. And we have skyrocketing suicide rates in America, way more than every other country. Why? Because we're drowning in a sea of guns. And finally, oh well, Norway had gun murders too, or they had 31 homicides, as Anna explained. In 2018 in America, we had 16,214. Now again, per capita, we're a much larger country, but per capita, 10 times worse in America. 10 times worse because everyone has guns. Look, if you're an honest person, that's not a tough question. The facts are overwhelming. You have to go, oh, well, I saw a 1987 study, and plus I like hunting, plus I want to defend myself, plus I don't really care about other human beings. I got you. But if you're just looking at the facts, of course, guns help people kill much more efficiently and much more likely to be used to kill people, including yourself. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.